All right, it's Best of Fish Food 2019. We got frozen food up here. We have dry foods. We're going to find out some of the best foods for 2019.
Yeah.
We're going to start with the most popular, so stuff as voted by you, what you guys are buying, and also the most economical solutions out there. But what else?
We're going to hit up the highest protein content for your dry foods and your frozen, as well as the highest fat content for both of those.
So protein and fat are one of the biggest nutrition, so what they can build their muscles out of, as well as fat being energy for the fish, for metabolic function. So really two really important things when you're looking at a fish food. We're also going to do best in show, so the best fish foods out here, as well as what we'd like to see for 2020. All right, so best of 2019 dry foods, what is it?
This one took me off guard here because it wasn't on my radar. And it's the PE pellets, which is what you guys are primarily buying out of all the dry foods out there.
Number one seller, caught me off guard as well. I knew that it was popular, but I didn't know it was that popular actually. And I'm not surprised now after the fact because the PE frozen mysis is one of those things that a lot of people are using out there.
Yeah.
So it didn't catch me off guard, or it did catch me off guard, but I shouldn't probably. So the next one out there, what is it?
Yeah, right behind them, and if you combine the two together, it's actually a little more, but you have the Reef Nutrition TDO and then the Neptune crossover diet, which is essentially the same thing.
So this is actually, it says right on the package, made by Reef Nutrition, and what it is one of these pellets that are top dressed with a smaller pellet, or not pellet, powder on the outside of the pellet. So they call it crossover diet, so it's for your corals and your fish all in one thing. So kind of a mix of these different things. And so actually, if you combine these two together, Reef Nutrition is the manufacturer of this one. These are the number one selling fish foods as voted by you guys of 2019.
Yeah, and then we have the herbivore blends, right? So what is the top for herbivores? And it's stuff that we even use on our own tanks, like the Bit 160. The Seaweed Extreme by Hikari, number one pellet for seaweed, and then also the two little fishies, you know, sea veggies or seaweed sheets.
So this is just a personal preference. Those are the two big ones, and they're pretty obvious. I think most people probably knew that.
Yeah.
But these guys are like 67% seaweed in a pellet form, you know, and it's pretty high for something that's been turned into a pellet. And for me personally, if I'm going to feed that kind of nutrition, it's just a lot easier to get in a pellet form. Other people like to use the algae and attach it to a rock with a rubber band or, you know, clip on the window. That's a lot more work for me.
And it gets all over the place, you know. So some people like the Seaweed Extreme that I can control the dose and the amount and all that other stuff. It's not floating all over the place.
Yeah. But the most popular 2019, those are the two if you're going to feed seaweed to it. All right, so best of 2019 frozen food, what is it?
It's really surprising here on the enormity of how popular this one is, and it's the Hikari mysis here, and that's the bio-encapsulated with some vitamins and additional ingredients, but 10.5% protein, 1% fat.
So yeah, this is a landslide most popular by you guys, and I'm not surprised, I guess, because it is one of the cheapest options up here, or most affordable.
Right.
But right behind that, there are some other options out there that are pretty popular. I will say like 1/3 as popular as this one. So, but they're in a grouping right behind that, and that is the Rod's Food, Hikari's own Canadian mysis, and then the PE mysis. All kind of in a grouping right behind that.
Yeah.
And so most people probably wouldn't know or take the time to look, but Canadian mysis versus other mysis is 1% fat versus 2.3% fat.
Right.
So, and fat again being energy for the fish, right?
Right.
So it is like 130% more fat. So even if it costs twice as much, actually net benefit energy is positive, right?
Yeah, you know, and for me, like when I look at ingredients, like I look at ingredients for the food I eat and stuff, and when I look at the Canadian mysis and the PE mysis, it says mysis, 100% mysis.
Yep.
I mean, I look at some of the ingredients in the additional vitamins and whatnot in the Hikari mysis, and I mean, it's all bio-encapsulated. There's some additional stuff
Similar to gut loading
Yeah,
and whatnot.
right.
So you're adding nutrition in that form. I'll also say that their Canadian version is 12% protein versus 10% protein on this guy. So you're adding muscle building ability too. Same thing with the Canadian PE option out there. So the Canadian, both of these are Canadian mysis. They're more nutritious than the other counterpart. And then Rod's Food, obviously, it's a blend of like whole shrimp, whole squid, whole octopus, whole everything.
Really popular.
A total different approach to feeding your fish with Rod's Food, and also very high in protein and fat. Because of that, so those are the most popular as voted by you guys.
All right, up next is most economical for 2019, and which one makes the least dent on my wallet? What do we have?
Really, I don't think it matters. So we didn't actually vote on that because
No.
all of these are so inexpensive. There's a lot of areas where we'll do the best of where economical is the most important factor, and like, or at least like 1/3 of the whole thing is probably like making sure that this is affordable. In this case, all of these fish foods are affordable. Whether you spend $5 or $7 a month on fish food, probably isn't the biggest expense on the tank, and it's really obvious if you're looking for the cheapest ones out here, which ones they are. So I think most of us are actually watching something like this because we want to know which ones are providing the most nutrition and the healthiest for the dollar, not necessarily the cheapest option. We're definitely going to get that today. So that leads us right into the highest protein content of any dry food for 2019. Again, protein, what the animals are using to build their muscle tissue. And it was actually the golden pearls, one of the new foods that we just added. And golden pearls is predominantly like a larval and breeding food. So, you know, what you're going to use to breed food, not surprisingly going to have the highest protein out there. Now, the golden pearls are tiny little pellets, right? So they might not be appropriate for all of your fish. But the point here is to, when you're shopping for food, you know, look for the things that have some of the higher protein contents out there. I'd say anything, you know, 45% and above is probably pretty good. This guy here was 55% protein, so, you know, going even beyond that. And I wouldn't nitpick like a few percent one way or the other because it probably doesn't make sense. But if you're looking at 30% protein, that's a pretty far drop. All right, so highest protein content of frozen food for 2019, which one was it?
This one I've used on my own tanks before, and it's the Hikari Mega Marine, the mix here. That's 13.2% protein as compared to the next runner-up, which is about 11.9%. So about a percent difference.
So not surprising because they, you know, this is a blend, so they mix a bunch of different types of things in there to make the Mega Marine. And I know that with a lot of the products, they gut load them with vitamins and other types of nutrition. So highest protein content out there at 13.2, so about a percent higher than some of the other options. The next closest options, you know, being a Canadian mysis.
Yeah, Canadian mysis, presumably the PE mysis, because we think they come from about the same.
Both Canadian mysis.
Yeah.
Probably coming from the same lake. I haven't actually been up there to see. But you know, these things have 11.9% protein in this guy right here. The only difference I'll say is that 8 ounces, the PE one's about $4 cheaper. So you know, you can pick your favorite brand, but the $4 probably ain't gonna make a difference, huge one way or the other.
Right.
So one of the other big ends of nutrition, which is fat content and energy, which one was the highest for dry foods?
Yeah, so this one was 10% higher than the next dry food protein fat content, in which case the BRS freeze-dried Calanus, 26% fat.
26% is way, way higher than most of them out there. And granted, this is a very particular food. So it's a tiny, tiny patter. You probably feed like anthias or whatever in it. But it goes to show, like, if you're going to feed, you know, fish like anthias who need a lot of energy to sustain the fact that they're swimming all day long, the highest fat and probably the easiest digestibility, something like this, you do definitely want to get it mixed up and dissolved before you put it in there, or use some of the frozen options, which presumably have the same fat content in it.
Right.
But right after that, what was it?
I mean, it's breeding type of foods like Sustainable Aquatic's hatchery diet or the TDO and Neptune crossover type stuff. I mean, these are 16% in each of these respectively. And in the hatchery diets we actually used are the clownfish harem tank, and now we, on a lot of our tanks, we use the TDO stuff. So.
Yeah, so again, like 16% is actually, like some of the other dry foods out there can be as low as like 5%. So that's 1/3 the amount of energy in there. So these absolutely are going to be some of the best options. And again, the reason it's Sustainable Aquatics we use for the clownfish harem series is because they provided the clownfish. We thought we'd use the same feed that they're using to breed and take care of them. All right, highest fat content of frozen, which one?
I mean, this one beats out quite a bit because fat content in frozen food's pretty low, and in which case, again, it's the PE colonus. So similar to the highest fat percentage in dry food, now in the frozen form, it's a 6% fat content.
Which is about double, right? And the next one, lowest down, is the Rod's Food Blend at 2.9% fat. And you might notice that these are definitely smaller or lower levels than the dry foods, and that's because there's water in these other foods out here that make up some of the percentage. So 2.9 with the Rod's Food was the highest of all of them out there. So bravo to Rod. All right, so best in show 2019 for dry food, which one is it?
Yeah, this one, we're gonna give it to the Reef Nutrition TDO. I mean, as we use this around the house all over the place here in BRS. It's got a wide variety of different sizes, pellet sizes, so from small fish mouths to large fish mouths. You get to choose which ones works best for you in your tank. It's got a good mix of that fat and protein, and a lot of breeders use it.
This is probably the number1 breeding food out there in our industry. And not only that, but I got a little special note on the packaging. So this is a foil lined Mylar bag that keeps all of the oxygen and moisture out. It also comes with multiple Stay Fresh packets inside of it to protect the food. Has a really tight fitting little spout that's actually easy to get small amounts out and then reseal it again. So if you make a good product, it's only as good as the package that keeps it fresh, and they really bring it all the way around by making sure that if you make a good one, protect it in the end. So I have to totally agree. Best in show. If I was going to use anyone out here, it's probably going to be the TDO. And I'll even go all the way over to the Neptune ones if you're looking for that crossover diet and you want to feed both the small little particles for the corals and your fish. They don't have as many sizes in here, but you can see on our website actually all of the individual grain sizes next to a little ruler and really get an idea of what you're picking up when you do. All right, so best in show of 2019 frozen food, which one is it?
Well, since we made our DIY reef chili, but we're not packaging and selling it, I've got to give it to somebody else who's doing similar type of things, and that's Rod's Foods for sure. The widest size of different foods. So, I mean, there's pieces in there for your larger fish, pieces in there for your smaller fish, and plus a diversity of the types of food that's in there.
So I agree, it has that whole shrimp, whole krill, whole squid, and the list goes on and on and on. And most similar to like what people are doing with other areas of pets where you're looking for total nutrition, you look for a wider range, and he's nailing it here. He's got a good mix of that fat and protein, and got to give him best in show. But right behind that, if you just want to use something more simple, what is it?
Yeah, the Canadian mysis and the PE mysis, these types of things have like we saw, high protein and high fat contents in them. And then, colonus for both the freeze-dried and the frozen option, just a highly nutritious type of single food.
So I gotta agree. I had a ton of success using just the Canadian mysis. Doesn't matter, Hikari P, pick your pleasure. But outside of that, if you're gonna feed tiny little fish like the anthias and whatnot, the colonus, the frozen option is probably my favorite of the two. But either one will work if you don't want to mess around with frozen. And those are best of show. So what would we like to see in 2020 for fish food? So what are those improvements for 2020 that we'd like to see?
I mean, TDO really knocks the packaging out of the park here for us, and there's an opportunity for a lot of people to probably up their game in the packaging as far as all these different dry foods. So, maybe some of your favorite dry foods manufacturers will up their game in packaging.
Yeah, put $1 more in the packaging and the quality of product will be good, because some of the times this stuff lasts for months.
Yeah.
So inside of that also, I think we can up our game as an entire industry and stop thinking about necessarily the cheapest possible way that we can feed our pets and start thinking about the best way we can feed our pets.
Right.
Predominantly we've been thinking fat and protein only for a really long time. The cheapest protein, the cheapest sources of fat. But in the entire pet industry all over, we're actually elevating the game. And how do we keep our pets healthy for a really long time? Some of the cheapest cat foods out there may get my cat to 10 years, and some of the best ones may get him to 20. These are my pets in my house too, with all my fish.
Yeah.
And I would happily spend a couple extra bucks to make sure that we can get them all the way and keep them healthy as long as possible.
Yeah.
And not just protein and fat, but like a whole array of nutritive elements important to metabolic function. Like, you know, if I don't get vitamin K, I'm going to lose my eyesight.
Right.
Same thing with the fish. There's all kinds of tiny little things in there that really help the fish survive. So, like, let's up our game in 2020 and look for better ways to evolve the fish food game.
Now, directly tied to that is probably that Reef chili DIY frozen food that we just made. I mean, it hits this nutritional value on a lot of different fronts, like 20 some different ingredients going into it, so you get to see what goes into your food. Since we're not shipping this one out the door, you can make your own, and we have a recipe for you. It's available right here at this link.
And actually making your own food, you get to mix it all in, Reef chili or no, might actually be the best of 2019.